Chuck Landon on Twitter at Chuck on Sports. Huntington Herald-Dispatch covers Marshall, a columnist who's seen them for a long, long time. I'm not saying that means he's old, because I've seen a lot of things for a long, long time as well. Chuck, good afternoon. Thanks for being on with us. Paul, Craig, and I'm David Smoak. What has this week been like for Marshall after what they did in South Bend?
You know, it hasn't really been as cataclysmic as you might think. I mean, it was big, obviously, and a lot of people, met the plane at the airport, when it came back and this kind of stuff. And on Monday, the governor of West Virginia, who's a Marshall grad, came down and talked to the team and that kind of stuff. But other than that, that's kind of just been it. There's just a overall feeling of well-being among Marshall fans. They're happy campers right now.
How much does this springboard the rest of that season? This is a team full of transfers. Henry Columbia from Texas Tech. They have, 3 guys from FSU and all that. That getting this win in South Bend can help them make a run in the Sun Belt. Oh,
sure it can. They've got a tough schedule. They've got two straight. Notre Dame, they played 3 straight road games after playing a FCS school, and then after those 3 road games, they'll come back play another FCS school before they really hit the real meat of their schedule. They go to Bowling Green, which hasn't won a game on Saturday, and then the next game is at Troy down in Alabama. Troy is a tough out. I don't think Marshall's ever beaten Troy, home or away. So that's an interesting game.
Chuck, what were your thoughts going into the Notre Dame game about how Marshall might fare, and when over the course of Saturday did you go like, oh, wait a second, this is getting kind of real right now?
Well, you want honest? You want me to be honest?
Sure.
I picked them to lose 48-10.
Hey,
good for you, man.
Hey, understandable.
Yeah, I've been taking some crap around here. So no, I watched them during preseason, and the offensive line was just getting smoked by Marshall's defensive line, and I just questioned that really big time. And as it turned out, Marshall's defensive line was really, really good, and was apparently better than Notre Dame's, because Marshall's offensive line didn't have any problem with Notre Dame.
You've been there. In fact, Chuck, I was told by somebody that writes in the Sun Belt, you were there during the most awful time, right? The plane crash with Marshall as well?
Yeah, I lived in the dorm with all the football players that died in the crash.
Oh my Lord! Can you? I don't even know if you want to go back that time, but what was that like?
But you never forget it. You never forget it. It was, we found out about 10:30, something like that evening, and of course it was the first time the guys had ever gotten to fly, and so then we start hearing little snippets coming here and there. And then it was an all-night thing. We never went to bed that night. The phones were ringing off the hook of relatives calling in, wanting to know if their son was on the plane, this kind of stuff. Like, we had a defensive tackle that his last name was Brown. We called him Governor. And I answered the phone. It was his sister, and she wanted to know if he was on the plane. Well, I'm 19 years old. I'm like, what am I going to tell this lady? And that's the kind of stuff that was going on then. And we sat and had a prayer meeting at 5 a.m. And Reggie Oliver, who was the quarterback, there was 5 guys from Druid High School in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he was a freshman. There wasn't freshman eligibility at the time. He was his 4 buddies had all died in the crash. And during the prayer meeting, we came to find out that Reggie hadn't called home to his parents and let them know that he wasn't on the plane, because they just assumed he was. They didn't understand freshman eligibility and that kind of stuff, So it was a very somber and trying time, and it went on. It didn't just go away in a week or two. It went on and on and on for months after that. And and years after that, to be honest.
We're talking to Chuck Landon. Huntington Herald-Dispatch covers Marshall here with 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio.
What has been your assessment of guys like Henry Colombi and the Kalen Laybourne and guys that have come in?
Oh, Henry, I really like Henry. Henry is a really good guy. He's very intelligent. He's very mature. It was funny because I covered WVU, Western University also. So, because our newspaper owns the newspaper in Charleston also, so they're more W oriented. Well, anyway, 2 years ago, I was in Morgantown covering it, and Henry led Texas Tech, went over W in Morgantown. So then he ends up back here. I'm like, come here, Henry, I got to ask you something. As in your wildest imagination, after beating W in Morgantown, did you ever, in your wildest imagination, ever think you would be coming back to West Virginia to live? And he goes, no way. Just no way.
That's awesome. The Sun Belt is getting a lot of praise, obviously, coming out of this weekend. They made a concerted effort in the midst of just crazy realignment where everybody else is saying, screw the state lines and geography. We're just going for the teams that we can get that'll bring the most eyeballs. The Sun Belt said, no, let's worry about geography. Let's have rivalries. Let's focus on that. I know the journey in the Sun Belt is still very fresh and very brand new right now. But what is it kind of like to be a part of a conference that had a weekend like they just had? And what do you think of the makeup of this conference, especially moving forward?
Oh, I love the makeup of the conference. I mean, it renewed so many old rivalries for Marshall. I mean, they had a tremendous rivalry for years with Appalachian State. They had a tremendous rivalry with Georgia Southern, played them in national championship, one AA national championship games. They played Troy. They've played so many schools that they have previous relationships with. So it just made so much sense at every level, and Keith Gill, the commissioner of Sunbelt, has just done a wonderful job. He's got that league really moving, and it's good for the fans because it's more of a regional conference now, and you can drive the games. And we're in Conference USA. Yeah, you can drive many games. Yeah, you can drive the games now, and that's just healthy for the fan bases.
Whenever you win, and you're not like one of the Blue Bloods or even the Logos, or even we saw a lot of coaches who were move on last year in a crazy offseason, there's going to be interest in Charles Huff. There's going to be interest in guys who win.
Oh, sure.
How can they keep that from being something that becomes a distraction?
Oh, let's be honest. If Charles Huff gets another offer, he's going to be gone. He's going to be gone. Everybody knows that here because he has no ties here whatsoever. None. He's from Maryland. He's been at Penn State. He's been all over the place. He was at Alabama, but he has no ties here. So if Virginia Tech, sniffed around him last year, and actually flew up here to have a little meeting with him, when they were looking for a coach. So there's no pretenses there that we're going to go, okay, we're going to make an offer to keep him. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Amazing.
So
yeah,
that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing the weekend of what Marshall did, what Appalachian State did, and then what Georgia Southern did. I loved it. I want chaos in college football, and I think that's just the first 1 week of it. Just absolute chaos.
Well, and what's fun is Appalachian State's head coach is a native West Virginian. He's from Charleston. I covered him in high school when he was playing for George Washington High School. We've remained good friends all over the years, and his parents still live in West Virginia. And so, I mean, it's that kind of a scenario where everybody, and it's kind of fun.
So, Chuck, coming up this weekend, they'll be at Bowling Green, and the machine moves on, as they say. A long way to go. Season doesn't end after the big upset. But just what's kind of your synopsis of Marshall moving forward, and how, if in any way, does that Notre Dame win now change maybe the thought process behind the rest of the schedule?
Well, the interesting thing is, they got Laybourne. from Florida State. He hadn't played football in 2 years, and this is the sixth year they got him, and he was supposed to be the backup because they have a young man named Raheem Ali who just set the college football on its ear last year. I mean, he rushed for 1,400 yards. He led the nation in touchdowns and all this. Well, he's been injured. That's why Laburn's playing. He's been injured. Well, now he practiced yesterday for the first time since his injury, and he's not. As far as I know, he's not going to play this week, but he may be available for Troy or pretty soon coming down the road. So you add him to this package now, and who knows, what they could do running the ball with a 1-2 punch like those two guys.
Chuck, thank you. Appreciate your time. Great stuff. Huntington Herald-Dispatch, longtime columnist, has covered that area, also Marshall football, and with us on 365 Sports. We will check in with David